Hey y'all, welcome to another thing of Redneck Reads Reddit. A little more malicious compliance for y'all. And here we go. First story, correcting my every move. Oops, this is on you. Back in the early 90s, I worked in graphic design. I took a job with a small agency, now defunct, and was supposed to be the creative director. Soon after joining, I learned that I was fed a line of crap and that I actually was considered an entry level designer. After having my portfolio reviewed with videos of commercials, tapes of radio stuff, entire campaigns written and concepted by me, etc. But nope, you are entry level now. Well, I needed the job desperately and was told your first 3 months are probation. After that, you'll get larger duties. Well, okay, we'll see how this goes. I had rent and a car payment, so not a lot of choices as nobody was hiring. During that idiotic probation, the guy I was replacing was still there for a month. I know. To oversee the transition, seriously, folks, this transition over maybe 5 accounts that weren't that busy, but whatever. Not to mention in my 15 years in the biz, and this guy's only had 2 years, but I digress. This guy, let's call him Jay, because that's his name, was a really freaky dude. He looked like an alien and acted like a robot. Zero emotions, barely moved his face when he talked, and never laughed. And most importantly, not creative at all. And a real yahoo when it came to all the silly rules and regulations of this tiny 5-person agency. Basically, a real pain in the butt. But I did my best to do what he wanted, knowing he'd be, thankfully, gone soon. Pardon me. Within the first months, I was given an assignment of designing a pocket folder with inserts, very standard stuff. Instead of the standard vertically tabbed inserts, however, the client wanted them to be stepped, meaning that each insert gets shorter and shorter as it gets to the front of the pocket for a stepped look. A hassle, but nothing that difficult. For a couple of days, I'm getting the measurements right, making sure this rough is totally perfect because Jay picked out picked out all my colors, fonts, etc., and getting them approved by my incredibly hands-on agency owner. An entire novel could be written about this, but that's for another sub. So now that the rough idea has been approved by the client, the next week I'm creating the actual files for the job to be printed from. I got all the portions correct, and it's just waiting for the final text from the client, and I'll be all done. Please note that this is an ad agency, and every minute of our time is recorded on time cards as to what we're doing and what client it's for. We're not allowed to even fudge on this card no matter what, even if it's us correcting our own errors or whatever. And per J, we're supposed to supply details on each portion down to even putting down the minutes for filling out the time card. Yes, idiotic, but there you have it. I come in the next morning and there's Jay. He's sitting at my computer and the screen is on my folder job. So I just casually sit down in the adjacent chair and I say, "Hey Jay, what's up?" Jay doesn't turn around and look at me. He just states with a robotic yet irritated voice, "I have spent the last 2 hours going over this folder job and corrected your incredibly stupid errors. The sizings of these inserts are all over the place, and it is incredibly sloppy work. I don't know why this place even hired you." So I'm barely able to contain my laughter. "Oh, Jay, that's interesting. Wait for a beat. Did you read the job folder description? Because those inserts are supposed to be stepped down in size for each one. It took me about 2 hours to get that just right. I certainly hope you didn't change all of them because your time will have to be explained. And then, per your instructions, I'll have to write down on my time card who messed them up and why I had to do them all over again." I watched the back of Jay's head, who was now frozen in place and not moving, his ears slowly turning bright red. "Well, Jay, you better get out of my chair because I'm going to have to get busy and change them all back, and that's going to take a while. Oh, and Jay, make sure you put down on your time card the hours you spent this morning on this job and explain to them so I don't get in trouble for going over the budgeted hours. Jay slowly got up from the chair and walked out. What poor young Jay didn't know is that I had a secret file of backups, and it wouldn't take me that long. But I was going to sit at that computer and pretend to be working on that job for the rest of the day while talking on the phone to my friends. And I'd be sure to mark down all the time it would have taken to fix young Jay's mistakes with a very detailed explanation for my hours per Jay's instructions. I left that horribly run agency within a few months to start my own design business. It was the last time I ever worked for someone else. I retired last year after 25 years of owning my own business. But I'll always remember Jay and laugh. Thanks for the laughs, Jay. All right, y'all. Jay sounds like a goofwad, and yeah, that sounds like a way too much micromanaging for me. So, on to the next story. You specified the law, Mr. Lawyer. Back in 2014, I was a support analyst for a company that made and hosted medical screening applications and healthcare registries. One of the registries was for medical implants and covered England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. It was the largest of its kind in the world, and as such, we received data requests from organizations and government agencies from all over the world. One of my pet peeves is people mentioning the Freedom of Information Act, FOI, repeatedly, as if we'd never heard of it. They'd put it in the subject line on any attachments and a few times in the email. You didn't actually need to quote the FOI. Just ask the dang question and we'll process it for you. Annoying, but nothing major. Then one day I got an email that set my inner Yahoo off. The email was from some lawyer in Edinburgh. He'd done the same thing, but with a slight difference. He had quoted repeatedly the Freedom of Information Scotland Act. It was mentioned at least 6 or 7 times in the email, plus the subject line, composing about 40% of the total text, or so it seemed. The whole email was rather blunt, demanding, a touch patronizing, and then ended with a threat of legal action if we didn't comply. Completely unnecessary, yeah, and I just couldn't let it go. I did some research to check my understanding and confirm my suspicions. He very specifically and repeatedly quoted the FOI from Scotland. And he is a lawyer, so he should know the law, right? I sent him an email acknowledging receipt. Then I did nothing for 28 days. On day 28, I sent another email advising that Medical Implant Registry of England, Wales, and Northern Ireland does not operate in Scotland, and therefore we don't retain or process any data that falls under the Freedom of Information Act, Scotland. I ended it by saying if he'd like to resubmit his request under the FOI, we'd be happy to process it within the 28-day limit. Update. To add a little context, all of the data/statistics we provided was adjusted for the surgeon and hospital, because even the best implant can fail if the surgeon does a bad job. The way he phrased the request, it could easily be interpreted that he only wanted the data that falls under the Scottish FOI, i.e., from Scottish hospitals. As he opened with a threat, I chose this interpretation and made him wait the maximum time to tell him. If he hadn't done that, I would have called or emailed to clarify his needs. Some paralegal from his office resubmitted a request about a week later. It was much narrower in scope and properly written, and politely written. It was processed in about a week. Simple, pardon me, way of looking at things, y'all. The one rule I have. If you act like a jerk, you deserve to be treated like a jerk. And this video is going on 10 minutes long, so I'm going to leave y'all with 2 stories today. I hope you enjoyed them. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the little bell so you'll never miss another video. All right, y'all. I will catch y'all next time.